Welcome to Tuesday Tea, the space where we get real, get honest, and talk about the things that actually matter. I'm your host, Alicia Bakker-Mudrock, therapist, Pilates teacher, coach, and author of Leading Lady Energy.
And I'm Melissa Levine, educator, coach, and your co-host for the conversations that don't shy away from the messy, the meaningful, and everything in between.
Each week, we sit down with incredible humans, leaders, creatives, parents, dreamers, people who've lived, struggled, succeeded, and figured things out the hard way.
We share stories, ask real questions, and highlight the badass people out there doing the work.
So grab your tea
Or your other favorite beverage.
and let's dive in.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Tuesday Tea with Alicia and Melissa. I am so excited. This is probably my favorite episode that I'm the most anticipatory. Ooh, that's a word. That's a word for early in the morning. This is my best friend, my favorite person in the whole wide world. Sorry, Eric. Sorry, children. No, but really, this is a person I've known since I was 10 years old when I first moved to the States. I was sat next to her. I thought her name was weird because I'd never heard it before. And here we are. I hate to admit it, but 32 years later, she's just like truly the love of my life. And I'm so excited for her to be here today and share her wisdom and just hang out, us three girlfriends. Also, Leash and Ari and I all went to a college together. That is how we are all connected. So it's pretty special to be here today. It feels like a full circle moment. So without further ado, I will pass it to Erika to let her introduce herself.
Good morning. My name is Erika, and I'm here. I guess Melissa thinks I have a lot of wisdom. I guess sometimes I do, but I don't know. It's always like other people see stuff in you that when they bring it up, you're like, oh yeah, okay. So yes, we met in college, and after college, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I kind of just had random little jobs here and there, and I ended up at this private school where I was working in the office, like doing tuition and stuff like that, and just basically working in an office. But I was like, my gosh, I'm chopping at the bit because I get there at 7:30 and I'm done with my work at like 8:30, 8:45, and I'm like, what do I do for the rest of the day?
Yeah.
So of course, when I was there, I was online searching, looking like, what can I do? So I was looking and I found a state job. So I'm looking at the state website and I'm like, okay, I want to work some job that's going to pay me a lot. That's all I cared about. Obviously, I'm like fresh out of
Yes.
college. So I found this random job that was like a counselor, and I was like, "Oh, I'm applying for this," and then I forgot about it. And 10 months later, I'm in this process to be working like with incarcerated juveniles. Long story short, it came about, and I actually ended up in that job for 16 years, and now I've transitioned into something else. I still work with incarcerated individuals, but more of like a social work type of atmosphere, which is definitely a difficult transition just because like I'm used to younger individuals. Now I'm like younger all the way up to somebody who could be my grandfather. And then I also I work with social work interns in our populations with either incarcerated individuals or transitioning individuals or people who are like out and in the community but have been incarcerated. They obviously deal with different types of things that your average citizen wouldn't deal with. So that actually teaches me a lot, and I feel like I get so much from those interns just because I remember what it was like. I mean, I went to my master's program and graduated in 2015, but now seeing like fresh social work students and like their battle with the way that the world is now, and like trying so much. Like my intern, excuse me, okay, but my intern says that his number one priority is to fuck up the system, and I'm like, absolutely, like as you should. And I think that I love that because it keeps me on my toes. Like I love that he has that passion, and seeing like what he wants to do and what he thinks like really would shake it up, I think is like amazing. And I love that aspect of what I do just because it's like an ever evolving lesson. Like I feel like that's what keeps you young is like continuing to learn. So like when you have a license and stuff, yeah, you have to do like continuing education, but there's nothing like boots on the ground, like and working with people who are in the thick of it right in that moment.
Yeah. I'm love the same, like, because obviously I'm also a social worker, but do such different type, like my track was like so different than yours. But I think that's one of the cool things about our profession is that it's not just you're going into people's homes and taking their children away, which I think most people like associate with our
Everybody thinks
field.
that, yeah.
And I'm like, no. And also those folks only need a BSW. They don't even have a master's. So it's like, it is like absolutely not what we do at all. Um, but I think it's very cool how there are so many like different layers and elements of the work within society that we can do. And it is really fun to see like I think I went to school for mine before you, and then you were in the middle of that for yours, and then your intern now, but like how our profession has evolved and also like where you go to school and what track you're on and
Yeah,
all of that. So I just think it's really cool how one profession can have so much reach, but also I think doesn't have enough awareness of all
yeah,
that we do and like the complexities and nuances of our skills and our job in general and how like diverse it can
definitely.
be, you know?
Unfortunately, like, when you say about, like, taking kids, that's really what people think when they see, like, we're here social workers. So, when I was working with juveniles, we had, like, anywhere between some were, like, 14 up to 25, 26. So, like, one was 27, but so really sometimes not kids, you know? But they would ask me if I would be studying or had, like, a book or something at the desk or out with me or whatever, they would be like, "Oh, what are you studying for?" And I told them like, "Oh, I'm in school. I'm getting my master's in social work." And they're like, "So you want to take me with kids?" And
Mm,
99% of them all thought that right away. And unfortunately, it was like really sad because they were like, "I have a social worker. Or I had a social worker that took
right.
me from my parents." And I'm like, "That's not the only thing you can do. Like, that's not the only thing that there is in this profession. And there's so many things." I had one professor who was like, she was up there in age, but she like did not want to stop teaching. And every time something happened in class that was like, like you help another person or whatever, like tagline was like, "Oh, that's social work. That's social work." Like,
Yeah.
and it could be like the simplest little things or like obviously something intricate as well. But it's unfortunate that that's what people think the first time they hear like, "Oh, social worker, oh, they work for Children and Family Services," or whatever it is.
Right. Right. What do you think has been the biggest like personal takeaway that has made you grow as a person or see the world in a new way or what, like really shifted your framework from your job? You don't have to like share like obviously like a personal story, HIPAA, but
Sure. No,
like
I mean, I don't
what's sort
mind.
of the
I don't mind.
themes maybe that
Yeah.
have like really like we all have those cases or moments, I think, in any work, but especially our work. And so I'm just curious, like there's some that like really changed a trajectory or really shifted a worldview or something for you.
Yeah, I think that I think there's like ever evolving too. I think that I have so many things that have affected me, so many things that have, and it's not always tragedies, but unfortunately the tragedies affect you even more than anything else. And I
Yeah.
remember being like super new and fresh and like working with our mental health population and like dealing with a lot of suicidality and like actual attempts and being there like in the moment when it happened, like, and finding somebody and, like being able to ensure that person was like actually made it. That was one of the times that like actually shook me to my core. Like, I'm not a person that's gonna cry at work or anything like that. And like I'm gonna like hold it together. But, like, the moment I got in my car after that shift, I, like, lost it, and I called one of my friends who was a police officer, and I was like, "I need you to tell me how you handle it because I know you shot people before. I know, like, you have, like, traumatic experiences. Like, how do I not see this person's face when I close my eyes at night?" But then, like, being able to have the rapport because that's my number one thing, like so side note, I do like go to therapy just because I feel like everybody should and everybody like would benefit from it. And I think that she noticed in me, she said, "Your like number one priority is like humanizing people and like actually like relational and like your interactions with people." And she's like, "That's what matters to you." And I was like, 100%. So being
Mm,
able to have the rapport to go back to that person like the day after or a couple days after and just ask them like what was going on in your mind, like what can we do to better be here for you, like what kind of help do you need. And I feel like that's kind of where I don't think that's where it started, but that's really where like I decided, like these people are human beings, no matter what they did in their past or what they may do in their future, because not everybody's going to leave and be a changed person. But like in this moment, they're going to remember that I treated them with respect and dignity. And if I ever see somebody on the street, I don't have to worry about my safety because I treated them with dignity and respect and as, like as a human being, you know?
Yeah.
I see how it affects the individual person. So like, like I'm in a very prominent Hispanic area. So like they have protests all day, every day for like against ICE and stuff. But like the building I work in, ICE is not allowed in the building. But like the population that I work with, like they are out and about. And a lot of them, they talk to you and they tell you like how scared they are because
Uh,
if they only have like a consulate ID from their like country of origin, or like even if they do have an ID, like if they speak heavy Spanish or whatever, they have the accent, like they're so nervous and scared, and it's like heartbreaking, and then or even like when you are told that this person is going to deportation, and like there's nothing you can do about it. It's like something that you have absolutely no say so whatsoever, and so like because I connect and like humanize and build rapport with anyone that I come in contact with, it like affects me more than maybe the next person, just because like I really do feel like I
you
have
have
a
a real face
relationship. Yeah.
to the names. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And you just care a lot, which is like what makes you really great at your job. And I think what also makes it hard and heavy. I think this is something I resonate with a ton because I know it's a different arena, but similar work, right? Being a teacher in high poverty area and like just seeing like the disparities and seeing like the real life on the ground, like consequences of policy, right? And like seeing
Mhm.
it like play out in front of you. Because I mean, it's like not realistic. I remember one of my therapists, which I love her, but she was like, just like do like a closing ritual at the end of the day. And I'm like, okay, but like I'm I can't like cut it off completely. I mean, I wish I was a compartmentalized kind of person, trust me, but like I just can't. Like I care so much that like, and then people are calling you and following you home. I mean, it's just that's crazy. So I
Mhm.
guess my question to you is what are some practical ways you have found of supporting yourself through I don't like to say dealing with, but like managing some of those feelings and like how
Yeah.
not letting them affect you to the point where it's like impacting you negatively.
Well, so essentially, like it does affect me, and I just have to figure out, like you said, so it's not like negatively impacting me for like an extended period of time. And obviously, that came with learning and with time because I've dealt with some things that were so difficult that I was like almost like shutting myself out from the world. Like I didn't really want to go anywhere. I didn't really want to do like extra stuff when I wasn't at work, but then when I'm at home isolated, it's like worse for you. So, I mean, it definitely came with learning over time until like this last year, we had like an extreme tragedy in my workplace. It just happened to be that maybe I want to say it was like 2 days later, I just happened to have therapy because at the time I think I was going like every other week, but like I just happened to have it 2 days later and I told her before. So I like emailed her and just said like FYI, this is what like I'm dealing with. So I'm pretty sure we're not going to talk about anything but this. And I think we tried like several strategies, and I think like when I want to do something, I'm going to do it, and when I don't, my body's not going to do it. Like so I think that what I really noticed is that because I'm on high alert and like super hyper vigilant all day long, as soon as I get home, like I go from like 100 to just crash at 0. Even if I'm like up and about in the house and stuff, my brain is on 0. Like I don't want to read a book. I don't want to do any of that. Like put on the TV, scroll, whatever. And whereas like that comes in handy sometimes, like it's not also not healthy for your body to go from like 100 to 0 because like medically actually that affects you in the long run. So
cortisol. Like
yes, like
not enough.
it's
Yeah.
horrible. So, I mean, so some of the things that I do, so one of the things that she suggested, and it didn't really work for me, but like obviously we tried several things because she was like, you have to realize that when you get home, like you have to realize that you're in a safe space. And sometimes, like when you come in the threshold, she's like, sometimes you have to just shock your body. So you hold pieces of ice and like remind yourself like I'm safe here. And that didn't really work for me, but I tried it, and then I kinda just had to force myself to get into, like, a routine where, like, I I wanted to make sure that I was still doing something. So like at least once or twice a month, I'm going out with like my friends that are around here, like just like a weekend, like, oh, let's go meet up for dinner, let's go do this or whatever. So I'm not just sitting in the house when I'm not at work, I'm at home on the couch. Like, I have to consciously make that effort. And what I think is my number one thing that actually really helps me the most is that like I do have friends in my life that are, like therapeutic in nature. So I can talk about things. And sometimes there's a point to where you're like overdoing it. And that was kind of like last year where I got to that point. I was like, I cannot talk about this anymore. Like, I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to hear about it because, like, in the line of work that we do, like, there's videos of everything. So I've watched it already like 75 times. Like, I don't want to
Right.
talk about it a million times. But, like, when there's something there to talk about, like, I can talk about it with the people that are close to me. And like one of my friends had said, like if you don't feel like talking on the phone, she's like, send me a voice note and I will listen to it and respond or not respond if you don't want to respond. So I think that like
Yeah.
the people in my life around me are like the number one thing that keeps me from going insane and with what you're doing,
Yeah. And I think also it's when we're working in a profession of humans and systems and we only have so much control over either of those, right? Because look, we can't make choices for someone else, unfortunately. And we, as much as we live in a democratic society and have collective voices, like we also can only do so much with very old ingrained systems
Mhm,
with elements of corruption because we're people and nothing is pure. So I think something that is helpful though is like sitting in this both and of acceptance. It doesn't mean we have to be okay with it, but like accepting where we're actually starting from and being realistic about like the whole landscape and however that kind of looks like for you and where you're coming from. But then really diving into where you do have power and where you can take action. And it
mhm,
is going to be smaller or it's going to be unique for each of us or it's going to be different, but diving in your efforts to those spaces instead of sitting in all the helpless parts or trying to do or control something that we actually have no power or control over, right? And
mhm,
for different people, these mean different things. Like maybe it's personal activism, like stuff I can do. I can work out, I can eat this certain dinner, I can call that friend, I can do that thing. For some, it might be more social stuff. So that means you have a separate hobby, you're involved in your community in some way, you're like giving back, or you're running this thing, or you play mahjong on the side or do 5Ks or what, like something you're like with other people. For others, maybe it's like you call your senator, you write letters, you vote, you go to protest, like whatever. Right? I think it can be very unique and specific for all of us. But I do think in any profession where we're in systems that we like and don't like, and we're dealing with humans, we have to kind of step back to put our energies on the things that we have power over to feel,
yeah,
or we're going to like drive ourselves crazy, which I think is where your brain is just turning off, right? Like, and you had to find a way to turn it on to the stuff you could do something about in a way that felt good for you to do. And it might look
mhm.
different every day and it might look different in different seasons, but I think that it isn't perfect, but at least it moves us in a different direction than getting too black and white and too all or nothing and too just like getting in our own way. We have to find the nuance and kind of lean into it more than I think we tend to do as people sometimes, if that makes sense.
No, totally. And I think that one of the things that really kind of like shook me into like wow kind of moment was like after that situation. It was, like when people die, you have a funeral and stuff like that, like you kind of don't feel it until after all of the services and everything are gone because you're so worried about taking care of everyone else around you. And I feel like that's how I was in the very moment. Like I'm worried about like my coworkers, I'm worried about the other people there. Like there was incarcerated and previously incarcerated young men like around. So I was worried about like, are you guys okay? Are you guys okay? And then for the next like 2 weeks, every day somebody would come to my office and be like, "I'm just here to check on you. Like, are you okay?" And these are guys that other people throw away to the trash and say that they're not like emotional, they're not like human beings. And I'm like, those are the people that are checking, like so that kind of was like a breath of fresh air to me. And then something else that I've started to do because I know that when I come home my my go-to is just like I need to the first thing I have to do is change out of my I have to get out of that like my work clothes have to be taken off and I have to like be comfortable. And so I started to make sure like I have to wake up early. I have to go and like do some sort of exercise or something in the morning so that when I do come home, if and probably when I feel like just like laying it out, I don't feel like I have done nothing. Like
Right.
that's just something I had to do.
Yeah, I think that's goes back to like Alicia's thing about like what's in your locus of control. And when you have something that's in your control like that and you're making those decisions, you have inevitably more agency because you feel like you're doing the things that you can do. I know sometimes when I feel overwhelmed, I just now I'm completely paralyzed by inaction because I'm just like I can't do anything. I can't do anything. Like it's just too much, you know? And it's like and like we've all been there, right? But like when you have especially when you have like actual anxiety or like another, depression or anything like that, like you actually can't do the things. You know what you need to do and you know what will make you feel better, but sometimes you are paralyzed by that. And so I think that's a really smart, practical way of like just creating more empowerment for people is just like, well, I can't, like you said, Alicia, like I can't change the systems, but like, you know what I can do? I can call my senators, which yes, I did yesterday, Durbin and Duckworth. Sure did. Surely did. Because at least then I know that in the grand cog of the system of inequity, I'm nothing. I know that. And it makes me feel good because I'm at least doing what I can. And that's all I can do. Like, right? I invest money where I want to see change. I can call my senators. I can talk to people. I can humanize people when I see things happen, right? But I can't really affect change on a large scale as one person. But yeah, I think that's a really smart thing. And I think it's something that everyone can do more of is just like examining and not getting overwhelmed so much with like the big issues, just thinking like, okay, let me settle down. I'm talking to myself mostly. Where can I impact and what can I like do? And then just like put, like you said, Alicia, put all of your energy and time and money and the like stuff, resources into those things, because that's, I think, ultimately what makes us feel a little less alone and a little more in charge of like ourselves and like our direction that we're going.
I think that's part of the reason too why I really like having social work interns each semester or each year that they come, because like you said, you're not going to affect the entire world as one person. Like there are very few people that you can say have made a change for the world to know, but like little by little, we all make a difference. And I feel like having a part of teaching this new and upcoming generation of social workers is like my way of putting my footprint into future change.
Totally. I think one of the most revolutionary things I always think that I can do is like raise good humans. And I mean, I'm not perfect by any stretch, but like I just want them to be kind and like humanize people and have humanity, and like anything else will be like awesome. Like if they're successful, if they're this, but if they're just like kind, good people that can like issues and like speak up and say things, like I think that's revolutionary. But I think I agree with you. I think there's something really cool about doing these types of things, right? Like even this podcast is a small way to like educate just by conversation, right? The more we learn, the more we connect with other people, the more empathy we have to have because we're hearing someone's lived experience. I can't tell you, no, that wasn't your experience. Like,
Right.
well, yes, it was. Like, that's my experience, right? No, but I mean, truly, I think sometimes we get locked into like our little pods or like our people, and then we aren't connecting with other people and we aren't hearing other voices. And then we lose some of that understanding, maybe. Like, you don't have to agree with everything, but if you're able to conversate and like connect with other humans, I think that helps just make you feel a little bit more empathy because you're understanding or at least being educated in a sense, So I think anyway, that's another practical thing we can do is just like connect with people and just talk to people. Yeah, because this world is crazy. Like you can just like block people right away if like they say one thing you don't like, which there's some things that are blockable, trust me, right? But like there's sometimes where we can just say like, oh, I don't agree with that and move on,
Right.
Yeah.
I think we've tried to oversimplify humanity too much. Like we're not all supposed to think the same. And I think we, on both sides of the aisle, we have created a narrative where if you don't think all the things I do, you're bad or you're horrible or there's no conversation to be had here. And so this divide only keeps getting bigger. And it's really idiotic because I don't want to agree with everything everyone says. And I think that's what makes it beautiful and interesting. And we've like othered everyone so much. Like, I don't think anyone's guilt free from doing that at this point.
Mhm.
And it's like hurting everybody. Right. And so I do think, like you said, Erica, like working with folks who we other so quickly or have such like big opinions on universally, generally, from just like how we socialize and think about things here, you get to see real faces and real names and hear real stories. And it isn't so simple, right?
Right.
Like we'd want to make everything so simple. Well, it's
Mhm.
this person. He's just bad. Everything he does is terrible. Or
Yeah.
this is just wrong. Or this is just whatever. But it's like 99.9% of the time, that's actually not true. And so I think there's always a bigger conversation we're just very uninterested in having them. And that's like our problem. And I think if we all were better at just stopping and getting information and getting curious and listening, we don't have to all agree. We might come to different conclusions, but there is something more, there's more humility and there's more empathy and just like compassion there, then like we're all just on defense with the hypervigilance up, and
Yeah.
you act out of a more primal place than your frontal lobe place. And that's like the problem, right? And I think the farther we get from like using our prefrontal cortex to like make informed conversational decisions and assessments, we're just going to keep perpetuating this really unhealthy cycle. And so it is like the best we can do is turn them on ourselves and sit in that space for us and like be thoughtful and not just reactive and try our best to keep that like wave going versus like playing into this giant reaction wave that's occurring all across the country
Yeah.
in various narratives and forms. So
Yeah. So I think that that's like a number one thing that I see so much that, I encounter a lot of different types of people because I feel like, and this is a generalization. So obviously it doesn't mean that everybody fits into this category, but like, I feel like people that work with this population, with incarcerated people, with whatever, or people on parole or people on probation or in the court system, whatever it may be, I feel like there's two different types of people. You're on one end of the spectrum for the most part. So there are either people that are there because like they want to assert dominance and these are the scum of the earth and like, this is I need to punish and this and that. Or you have like a very therapeutic treatment side of like, let me fix these people or, like, or at least attempt them to help them fix themselves. So very few people fall in between. Most people are either on one end of that,
you're like
like kind
savior
of,
or
yeah,
persecutor.
yes. So it's really it's really unfortunate to see sometimes, like you said, some people just see like, okay, incarcerated person, like, oh, this is a fourth termer. They've been incarcerated four different times. Like they just like going to prison or they're just a gangster or there's whatever their like um
Yeah.
judgment is, you know? Like we have these people that are in this country illegally, but you don't know the story. Like you don't know why this person went to prison the first time and maybe what happened to them. You don't know why this person came to the country illegally. When somebody comes to this country when they're under walking age, like what can they really do about that? And then like now we're faulting them. We're just saying like, oh, you're here to steal
Right.
jobs or to whatever like their judgments are, which is so ridiculous. You don't know that person, you don't know their backstory, and like so cliche, but like you never know what someone's dealing with. The same thing, you never know what brought someone to where they are. So like you have no
Right.
idea reading like files and really talking and getting rapport and like learning people's backstories and like their history and stuff and like identifying patterns of behavior and like where they went wrong and stuff is like a major thing that I try to do because and then I try to help them point that out so that like
It
you
worked
can
out.
break that cycle. Yeah, you don't have to this time that you walk out the door or if you're like being on supervision or whatever the case may be, like when you're done with this, like this can be your last time if you learn how to break that cycle and if you
Yeah.
can identify what your like negative patterns of behavior are. And a lot of times these people are like in their 60s and have never heard that before. And I feel like how have you encountered all of these people in the system and you have never ever addressed
Right.
that before? Like it's crazy
Right.
to me.
Right.
And that's sad because it's like you're like one voice that's humanizing people and that's realizing that multiple things can be true. You can have broken the law and have good in you. You
Yeah.
can be here as an undocumented person and be a good person and not be a criminal and right, like there's always like so many sides to this story. And I think the issue is we look at like these systemic issues as simplified one-offs, and it's like, well, that's actually not, you can't really look at one person and think this is an individual issue, because it's really like a larger systemic issue that's impacted and trickled down to this one person, right? So it's encouraging to hear that like you, and I know like, you know, you've mentioned other people that you encounter in the job that like do think that way. But yeah, it just makes me think sometimes like, how are we recruiting or communicating those messages to people that we want to have in the field? And like, thank God you are like impacting this next generation of like social workers and things, right? So they can also have those thoughts and that like narrative that you're trying to teach them on how to like look at issues. But yeah, sometimes I'm just like, how do we affect more change in a way like that it feels manageable, because there isn't a lot we can do besides impacting the people, like making our ripples. But yeah, it's interesting. Like, I just don't understand why you would go into that work if you felt that way, because to me that just feels like that wouldn't go into education wanting to like throw the book at people because they're not educated. You know what I mean? Like that's so it's
That's
like
'cause you're a
interesting.
healthy person, Melissa.
Yeah.
It is, and it's interesting. Like even in my job, and like I'm teaching this new wave of teachers too, and it's like you come across sometimes people, and you're like, "What did you think this was?" Like I'm so
Right. Like, what brought
confused.
you
You
here?
know?
Yeah.
Right, because like you don't
Yeah.
like kids. You don't seem to like want equity in education. Well, you know,
So why
truly. And
is
so
the school system in this wrong? Yeah,
exactly.
like, no, it
To me,
makes
that would
sense.
be like you two, like, you know, like going into social work or therapy and then like getting mad at people that they had feelings. It's like, well, that's not
Right.
really track. Like the math ain't mathin', you know?
Yeah, yeah.
Anyway,
But
it's just, yeah,
it goes back to
interesting.
like humans are messy and
Yeah.
we're fucked up and like you have broken people in broken systems or you have people going into jobs to heal themselves but like that's not the place to do it or you have people with vendettas like nurses who go to like hurt people, right? Like you hear about
Yeah.
those people like the black widows or what, like so it's I don't know, I think like you're gonna and that's a smaller percentage but that's why like when dealing with humans nothing is simple and nothing is one way. And I was even thinking it's full circle to people hear our job and they make an assumption about it. And like,
Yeah.
we do not, I've never worked in DCFS ever in my
Ever.
life. Right? Like, I've even touched
Yeah.
that. It's just so funny how we do this stuff to survive. We other to survive, like, you know, in the wild. You need to know if that's a lion or you're a bird. And like that stuff is real, but we don't finesse it all the time and we live in that more primal space. And that's like where we get into trouble because the lion in the wild could eat the bird, but like the lion in our society isn't actually a lion going to eat me in the way that I'm responding like it is, right? Like, and sometimes, but not always. So I think it's just continue to have these conversations, continuing to teach people to be curious, continuing to like prioritize connection and remember we're all just kind of like, for the most part, doing our best and trying to make sense. And we all see the world from different lenses. So it's not all going to make sense to us, but like, how can we connect the dots? Because we still do have shared things going on and trying to live in those spaces instead of the differences. And I think just like less hate, you
Yeah.
know, life's too short to be so hateful.
And then I think being open to feedback, right? Like, so you can't just say like, oh, well, we're all different and we're existing in this space, and then not like be okay with someone saying like, if I'm willing to share my opinion, then I have to also be
Hear yours.
inviting someone
Yeah.
else's opinion, right? And like I believe that there's some things that are just unequivocally wrong and there's some things that are right, but most things do live in gray, in spaces of gray, right? So I just can't be like so like, you know, an egomaniac and just assume that, well, everyone's going to hear my opinion, but I'm not going to be open to
Right.
anybody else's thoughts. I don't have to, I can like literally just put one ear out the other, but at least I have to be
They
interested
all deserve some
in
space.
hearing other
Respectfully.
people. Yeah, exactly. And sometimes disrespectfully, but like I still want to like hear from other people what they think, because how
Yeah.
am I going to connect with people that aren't the same as me if I'm not at least willing to hear from somebody else's perspective? And I may, like you said, Alicia, like I may never agree with them and I may just like take that and throw it away, but I also it may help me understand someone differently and better. And I
Yeah.
don't think that could ever be wrong, is to like to understand someone, whether you agree with them or not. Uh, it
It can be
couldn't,
really
to me, that
beautiful.
can't hurt. Right. Yeah.
I think it's really hard though, like you said, because to me, I feel like most of the world is a gray area. Like to me, there are very few things that are black and white. And I
Same.
feel like a majority of the people that I come in contact with in like my work, not like who we're servicing, but like who I work with are very much so of the thought process that like this is black and white. Anything that has to do with immigration, deportation is black and white. Anything that has to do with incarceration or, like getting out or whatever the case may be is black and white. And it's like, if you can't learn to live in that gray area, you are not going to be successful, or you are going to be fighting tooth and nail every step along the way. Like,
Yeah.
if you can't learn to live in the gray, like it's going to be a difficult career for you.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's a
Totally.
difficult life. Like, I think I think it's people are finding like black and white thinking in any realm is super unhelpful.
It
Like we
doesn't
teach all the time
serve
as in our
anyone.
profession. It does
Yeah.
not serve you because it is not real. Because I
No.
too do think very, very few things are
Yeah.
100% one or the other. Like it's the list is
100%
like three
agree.
things maybe.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
Right.
there's so much
Yeah.
context that I need for this stuff.
Same.
So
And I
so
think
I'm
what's
just
interesting is like a lot of people that have that black and white mentality, and we all know from growing up in the church, a lot of them, and not all, I don't like to use all in the statements because again, black
that's
and
very
white.
black and white, Melissa.
Exactly. And I like to live in, I think the world is shades of gray. But in my experience, how about that? A lot of times when people are very black and white, it follows from this like idea of what's morally, like it's like black
Yeah.
and white. It's
Mhm.
a lot of times tied to like biblical worldview or whatever. What's interesting is I think Jesus was actually like super shades of gray. Like he literally came and like flipped things on their head and like, so I just think that's so interesting that we like to, use that a lot. And I say we, but like as a former evangelical, people like to use that a lot. And I think that's just,
It's
that's
the
such a,
antithesis of what
well, that's just like
we
a
feel, right?
total, like it doesn't even make
Uh-huh.
sense. That's like, you're just telling on yourself because that's like,
You're
you
like,
didn't
"That's
read the
not right."
Bible then because that Jesus
Yeah.
didn't do that.
Yeah.
So yeah. Anyway,
But I think religion's hard though in general because to be a religion, you're basically saying like we're the right one.
correct.
Is there to be religious, there is an element of black and white
Mhm.
because every religion thinks that they're the
Totally.
right religion
Totally.
because something else is the wrong thing. Like to really, really,
Mhm.
really water that down. So
No, for
unfortunately, I don't
sure.
think you're getting away from it in any really religion because the point is like we are right, you're the outside.
Mhm.
Like it
Yeah.
doesn't work. It's
Yeah.
really
No,
inclusive
that's
by
a good
nature of
point.
what religion means. Like the
Totally.
definition sociologically of a religion. So I think that's
Yeah.
what makes it tricky. But it can be very detrimental. So I agree.
Totes. Totally.
I'm looking at time. I want to make sure we don't keep you all day, Erica. What might be like a last like takeaway or something you really want to leave folks with after today?
I think there's so many things to be honest, but I think that even just what we were just talking about, like to learn to live in the gray, like you're gonna make your own life easier and really everyone else around you. Like you cannot live in a black and white world, and also, like getting to know somebody and getting to maybe like think about several, even if you don't talk to them or you don't know them, like the quick judgments based on maybe where they are, their position in life or whatever, or their position in like where we are, the quick judgments have to stop because you have no idea what that person's backstory is and like what that person was never taught. So in those moments, you can't make a quick judgment. You have to learn also to live in the gray and understand that everything is not bad or good, black or white. There are so many shades of gray when it comes to that. And like, understand that people have different backgrounds, people have different, like the way that they grew up is different, how they were raised is different. And a lot of people were raised in the system. So you have people that have been going to juvenile hall or jail or prison like since young ages and really have spent most of their formative years there. And if you're truly not in a system that's like about rehabilitation, like I said, there's people who have never learned about, patterns of behavior and breaking cycles and stuff. So like, can we really fault them for that? Like, of course, like it's not okay what happened to get them there, but like the quick judgments of who somebody is or like what they should have done have to stop because it's really not our place to judge anyways.
So
Yep.
true.
That's beautiful. I like that.
Well, thank you so much. It was great to
Thank
see
you
you
for
and talk
having
to you
me.
today. We'll
Yay,
see you
let's
on
plan
next.
another girls trip soon.
Yes.
Thanks for hanging out with us on this episode of Tuesday Tea. We hope something here landed, encouraged you, or made you feel a little less alone.
If you enjoyed today's conversation, make sure to follow, rate, and share the podcast. It helps more people find these stories.
And if you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop a comment. It really supports the show.
For more ways to connect with us or learn about what we do, check out the links below.
And until the next cup, keep the tea hot
And the truth hotter.